in Vienna 2 months after the nuclear disaster in Fukushima, and she met with TEPCO officials, with this Dr. Barclay G. Jones, with IAEA officials, and with Mr. Wataru Mizumachi, who I mentioned earlier as the sort of the liaison between the nuclear establishment internationally and U.S. Now, Dr. Barclay G. Jones was going to provide her with instruments to analyze the internal radiation levels in TEPCO officials. She has a patent on the technology, but she wouldn't tell me what it was. And so I looked up Dr. Barclay G. Jones. Well, he's Canadian, but he is the chair. He's 72 years old, and he is the present chair of the Department of Nuclear, Plasma, and Radiological Engineering at the University of Illinois. He has academic positions on committees within the university and within consulting. Some of his consulting activities have been with the Argonne National Lab, that's DOE, the Thermohydraulic Nuclear Regulatory Commission, Washington, D.C., Illinois Power Company Nuclear Review Audit Group, Electrical Power Research Institute, Palo Alto Institute of Nuclear Power Operations in Atlanta, Georgia. He received an Athlone Fellow of Canada to Great Britain award in the 50s, and he was at Harwell, which is the British Nuclear Analytical Laboratory in England. He also got a Halliburton Education Leadership Award, and I believe that Halliburton is owned by the Rothschilds. He got an Edison Electric Institute's Power Engineering Educators Award, American Nuclear Society Fellow, Power Engineering Educator Award, Edison Electric Institute, that's probably Rockefeller, and an Outstanding Professor Award from his own department. So he is very, very, very tied in to the nuclear establishment. Canada, Britain, and the U.S., all three. He is a key player, and that department at the University of Illinois Champaign is very, very, very tied to the Health Physics Society. And I'm telling you, these people are dumb. They're really dumb people. Now, some of the conferences they've had, I wrote down the different interests who were represented. There was this is the network that we're talking about that put this nightmare together and is now doing the cover-up. June 22nd, 2009, they had a big Health Physics Society conference, not just health physics, but other aspects too. And this is posted on the University of Illinois website, which means it was very important and they were very involved. So Entergy, the big nuclear power plant company, was there. Representatives from the Pilgrim and Indian Point reactors were there. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the University of Illinois, the Nuclear Engineering Institute, NASA, the American Nuclear Insurers. Isn't that interesting? The insurance companies were there. The EPRI is the Electric Power Research Institute, Radiation Safety and Control Services Incorporated, American Electric Power, the President's Office, President Obama sent the Office of from the Office of Management and Budget a representative. Arriva was represented from France. Wataru Mizumachi represented the Nuclear Engineering Society. He was from Tokyo. PG&E sent a representative from the Diablo Canyon Power Plant. Progress Energy Environmental Lab, Chesapeake Environmental Services. So all these people, all these stakeholders, there was another one at Browns Ferry in 2009, and the Atomic Energy of Canada was there. Sumitomo Metals Industry was there, Exelon Corporation, Constellation Generation Group, the Russian Research Institute for Nuclear Plants, the German Chemkraft Work Liebstag AG was represented, Duke Energy, Oak Ridge Associate University Studies. I mean, look at Ontario Power Group. Look at this spider web of vested interests. This is who is running the nuclear power industry. And the reason AREVA is so interesting is because in a Japanese book, an investigative journalist called Hiroshi Takase wrote a 2-volume investigation of the Rothschilds, and he had a page in it that was in English, and it showed that the whole entire nuclear industry globally is run out of France for the Rothschilds. That must be AREVA.
Yeah, and to show the Canadian connection to it, as you know, a huge amount of the lands here in Canada are Crown lands. Canada is one of the largest uranium exporting countries in the world, and that's part of the Rothschilds and the Crown of England's principal interests in Canada, and against the explicit provisions of Canadian law and the rules and regulations of the Canadian Nuclear Regulatory Committee, Canadian uranium is routinely exported from Canada and is the preponderant majority of the uranium in American, UK, and Israeli depleted uranium weapons. And when you and I brought this issue to a member of Parliament of the New Democratic Party who brought it to the floor of the House of Commons, the now Prime Minister of Canada, who's an Illuminati agent, Stephen Harper, brought the director of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission of Canada and fired her on the spot, right on the floor of the House of Commons over another pretext. But that's what it was about, to ensure that there was a steady supply of Canadian uranium for depleted uranium weapons for the continued use in this planetary genocide. So we've named plenty of names here, from Stephen Harper to Barack Obama to David Chu, his assistant, to President Obama, to Vice President of the United States, to Elizabeth of Windsor and her consort, to the Rothschild family, to the Rockefellers headed by David Rockefeller, who should be in the dock for war crimes.
I'd like to name one more name. In another one of these conferences that was held in 2008 in Florida, I found a link between the Memorial Sloan Kettering Hospital to this nuclear industry. And one of the attendees was a medical doctor, Dr. Ludwig Feinendagen, who was from UC San Francisco, the University of California at San Francisco. He had been there, but he's at Memorial Sloan Kettering now, and he's the one who has been promoting low-level radiation cell biology research update. But Dr. Feinendagen is the one who's promoted hormesis. And that's really interesting because the University of California is the major weapon of mass destruction developer for all of the international financiers. And they were the management contractor and the developer, co-developer with the Soviet Union of HAARP.
Right.
And it was developed at the Leuren Moret National Lab, where I'm a whistleblower. And here is the one of the main promoters, a medical doctor of hormesis, which is a fantasy or a hypothesis or a disinformation meme that has been promoted broadly that low levels of radiation actually benefit your health. It's the opposite. Low levels of radiation, especially chronic exposure, which we're facing now for centuries, is an extremely dangerous thing to public health and the environment, because low-level radiation per unit has a higher biological effect, a more dangerous biological effect than higher levels, and there are complicated reasons to explain it. But basically at high levels, there's so many free radicals from the radioactive particles in tissue that they run into each other and cancel each other, and it's the free radicals that cause a lot of the damage. So at low levels, they're very far apart, and they do more damage because they have to pair up with electrons by stealing them from molecules that make life possible in the cell. So there we have all of the ties right to UC San Francisco. And Alfred, I was attacked physically outside of my apartment on September 20th, 2010, in Berkeley, California, by a man I had never met or seen. He is the keeper of the RNA database, ribonucleic acid database at UC San Francisco. And he's the one who physically attacked me in front of my apartment. I've never met him. I didn't even know who he was. And it's because of the things that I've been exposing.
Right, right. And so we can now see through this forensic evidence and by tying it into all the hierarchy of government and offices and responsibilities that we have done, we can see how what we could call a catastrophic timeline has been created of a radiated Earth that will be going forward. And that's a catastrophic timeline. Now, just to let people know that there is science out there that says there are parallel timelines and there's a positive timeline, and we can opt into that one. That's my humble opinion. We have about 3 minutes left in this segment.
Okay.
And I'm just wondering,
I'd like to tie it all together.
Oh, good, great.
What I want to say, and I'm sorry for interrupting you, but I wanted to slip this in, is that Prince Philip, who is the consort of Queen Elizabeth, the British monarch, and Prince Bernhard, who was the consort of Queen Juliana, the Dutch monarch, both were Nazis. They're both German. They were German princes who married two crown princesses, and Prince Philip went to a Nazi school in Germany when he was 16. The leader of that school left Germany, and he went to Scotland and started Gundersen, which is where most of the ruling elite send their sons, including the crown prince and princess of the British monarchy. Queen Elizabeth has practically 95% of the ownership of uranium supplies and mines around the world, because she owns the mineral rights to all of the British Commonwealth. It's her personal wealth. Now, Prince Philip started the World Wildlife Fund and brought Prince Bernhard into it. That is a master